tonight. Do you remember what happened last time?
Um,
Proposal.
right. Are they still in this rice area?
Um, no, they were at Pruchi Shrine Village, and they were like helping out the farmers or whatever. And then
Uh-huh.
um, Shillian tried to contact Windmaster and got like this huge donation of like $1 bajillion from his
Mm.
brother Shiwudu, and he was like, "I can't fucking accept this." And so he put it on his back and brought it up to heaven. And then Ling Wen was like, Windmaster's not taking any visitors right now. Shiwudu said that. And then he left the money with Ling Wen. And then he snuck into the Castle of Wind and Water in heaven and found Xu Qingxuan tied up um, and struggling. Xu Qingxuan was tightly trussed up, tied to his own bed with ropes that bound his hands and legs.
Right.
Even so, he was still struggling nonstop. Meanwhile, Shiwudu was pacing back and forth next to his bed with a bowl full of an unknown black substance in his hands. He paused for a moment before suddenly walking over to the head of the bed, and then he forced the bowl's contents down Shi Qingxuan's throat. And that's where it ended. Alright, chapter 58. Shi Qingxuan violently choked as Shi Wudu squeezed his jaw and force-fed him the contents of the bowl. He spat and sputtered out more than half the stuff, dirtying the front of his robes. Screaming, he slammed his head into the bowl to knock it from his brother's hands. Shiwudu fumed. "Go ahead! Keep breaking them!" he yelled. "There's plenty of medicine where that came from. Break one bowl and I'll bring 20 more. I'll keep forcing it down your throat until you drink it all." "Ah! Can't you just leave me alone? Just let me die!" Shi Qingxuan screamed. "I'm your brother," Shiwudu snapped. "If I don't take care of you, who will?" Shi Qingxuan ceased his screams and settled for twisting his head away. Shiwudu sat down on the side of the bed and softened his tone. "I'll have your fan fixed." "I don't want it anymore," Shi Qingxuan said. The Windmaster loved that rare spiritual device of his Windmaster fan. He'd often bring it out just to play with. Even at the height of winter, with snow choking the skies, he would flutter that fan undaunted. But now, he'd said he didn't want it anymore. Shilian was only growing more and more curious. "If you don't want it, that's fine as well. We'll use the opportunity to forge you a new spiritual device." Shi Qingxuan turned his head back to look at his brother. "I don't want a new one either. Just let me descend." Shiwudu peered at him. "Descend? Descend where?" "Descend to the mortal realm," Shi Qingxuan replied. "I don't want to stay in the upper court anymore. I don't want to be a god anymore." Veins bulged on Shiwudu's fair brow. "What a joke! Throw away your godhood and return to the mortal realm? Do you think the mortal realm is some kind of wonderful place? Stop embarrassing yourself. I don't think you understand just how many people in the world want to ascend, or how many officials in the middle court would die to join the upper court." "That's right, I don't know!" Shi Qingxuan shouted, his anger obvious. "I just want to be a carefree, drifting vagabond. Is that so wrong?" "I won't permit it," Shiwudu snapped. "A carefree, drifting vagabond? Dream on." "I—" The color of his face changed abruptly. It seemed he'd received a private message that passed on worrisome news. With two fingers pressed against his temple, Shiwudu rose to his feet at once and listened intently. His face grew more and more serious, and he turned to Shi Qingxuan. "Stop adding to my troubles. I've been busy. I've no time to mind you. Once I return from my third heavenly tribulation, you won't be able to act out like this any longer." Then, with a whirl of his sleeves, he swiftly left the bedchamber. Once it was clear that he was gone, Shilian silently flipped down. He pushed at the window, hoping to sneak in, but it wouldn't budge. Some sort of seal of restriction must have been cast on it. He dared not force it open, lest he trip any alarms associated with that spell. And so he could only call out in a quiet voice. "Lord Windmaster! Lord Windmaster!" Shi Qingxuan jerked on the bed. He turned his head, joy clear on his face. "Your Highness?" "It's me," Shilian responded. "What happened to you? I can't open this window." May I try coming in another way? When confronted with a window that couldn't be opened by normal means, it was easy to guess the entry method a martial god would choose. Don't! Don't destroy anything, Shi Qingchuan said hurriedly. There are spells on all the windows and doors. If you force your way in, the whole palace of wind and water will know someone's here. They can only be opened from the inside, unless you're me or my brother. And you're all tied up, Shilian pointed out. Shi Qingchuan started to struggle like mad. Your Highness, wait a sec. Watch me flex these ropes right off. Shilian watched as he rolled around the bed in an immense struggle to break free, alternating between curling up like a shrimp and straightening out like an iron board. Shilian softly cheered him on. Keep at it, my lord. He could tell with a cursory glance that the rope binding Shi Qingchuan wasn't a spiritual device. With Lord Windmaster's considerable power, it should have snapped, with but a hook of his finger. Why was he having such trouble? Was Shi Qingchuan really so seriously hurt that he couldn't break free of simple bindings? All of a sudden, an odd movement came from under Shi Qingchuan's bed. A hand reached out from below. Shilian was startled, and his heart raced in alarm. Lord Windmaster, watch out! Someone's hiding under your bed! Shi Qingchuan's expression also changed. What? Just as he spoke, a black figure swiftly crawled from under the bed. Staring down commandingly at him from above was a man dressed in black and wearing a ghost mask. It was hard to tell how long he'd been hiding there, or what he was about to do. Shi Qingchuan writhed desperately, unable to escape his bonds, and Shilian remained locked outside. It was truly a dire situation. But before Shilian could put his thoughts of smashing the windows into action, he saw the man push up his ghost mask. Shut up! He hissed in a hushed voice. Shi Qingchuan's eyes widened. Mingshang? Mingshang! Oh my god, Mingshang, my good pal! Quick, help me loosen these ropes! With just one hand, Ming Yi snapped the rope that bound Shi Qingchuan. Shi Qingchuan worked out the kinks in his limbs, then crawled out of bed and rushed over to the window. He clutched Shilian's hands and shook them in earnest gratitude. Your Highness, thank you for remembering me! Shilian patted his shoulders and then hopped into the bedchamber with nimble feather lightness. Wasn't there a restriction seal on the chamber? How did Lord Earthmaster get in? It was hardly a feat, considering my profession, Ming Yi said. After saying this, he seemed to notice something amiss. He picked up the rope on the ground and inspected it before Shi Qingchuan. Why couldn't you break free of something as trivial as this? Shilian looked closely as well. This was a completely ordinary rope. With such strong spiritual power at his command, why did the Windmaster remain bound for so long by nothing but coarse twine? Shi Qingchuan's face froze, and Ming Yi grabbed his left wrist. As he felt his pulse, his expression turned grim. What's going on? Shilian reached out and took hold of Shi Qingchuan's right wrist. After a moment, his discovery dumbfounded him. Lord Windmaster, how did this happen? There was not a trace of spiritual power in Shi Qingchuan's body. Was it that bowl of medicine? Shilian guessed. Recalling the bowl of medicine Shi Wudu was trying to force down Shi Qingchuan's throat earlier, Shilian crouched to check the spillage. However, Shi Qingchuan replied, No. It truly wasn't the medicine. Shilian was somewhat familiar with the healing arts. Judging by its smell, the medicinal broth was likely an anesthetic meant to calm him. At most, it might cause drowsiness. Thinking back to the terrace of cascading wine and the frightening look that crossed his face, Shi Wudu must have noticed his younger brother's condition when he grabbed his wrist. He was likely making his brother drink such a broth for his own good. So why was Shi Qingchuan so adamant in refusing it? No wonder Shi Qingchuan wasn't answering any private communications. With all his spiritual power completely gone, he was no different from a mortal. Let me drink. Lord Windmaster, you've been banished? Shilian blurted out without thinking. How else could this have happened? But there were no cursed shackles on him, and there was no way a banishment could be kept under wraps. The upper and middle courts would have caught wind of it in no time. Shi Qingchuan's face was pale, and he seemed unable to stand any longer. Shilian helped support him. Why did Lord Watermaster tie you up? Only then did Shi Qingchuan snap out of it. Right, my brother. Let's hurry out of here, while he's still gone. Let's talk after we've escaped. Then he dropped to the floor and crawled under the bed. Shilian bent down and called after him. Lord Windmaster! There was actually a hole under the bed, leading to somewhere unknown. Shi Qingxuan disappeared into it, and Ming-Yi lowered himself down as well, ready to follow him. After a moment of thought, Shilian decided to follow them too. However, Ming-Yi came back out. Your Highness, don't involve yourself any more. Shilian was taken aback by his rebuff. Lord Windmaster has given me generous assistance on many occasions. Now that he's in trouble, I can't just sit back and watch. He's generous to everyone, but when there's real trouble, most people don't return the favor, Ming-Yi said. How others behave has nothing to do with me, Shilian stated. After we've figured out what's going on, I will of course take my leave if my assistance is unnecessary. Shi Qingxuan's voice came from under the bed. Are you two coming? The hole is closing. Sure enough, the hole under the bed was gradually growing smaller. Seeing this, Ming-Yi leapt us inside, and Shilian followed. As they crawled through the tunnel Ming-Yi dug, Shilian looked back to find that the entrance of the hole had closed on its own. How absolutely magical. Lord Earthmaster, how did you dig this out? He asked in a hushed voice. I thought it was impossible to burrow beneath the heavenly capital. It must be known that the foundation of the heavenly capital was not the same as the earth of mortal realm. In response to Shilian's question, he learned the Earthmaster Ming-Yi was a skilled tradesman prior to his ascension. In his mortal lifetime, he repaired bridges, fixed roads, opened mountain paths, constructed houses, and bestowed prosperity to countless common folk. These astounding feats of service were what all allowed him to ascend. Before any major construction projects began in the mortal realm, before any earth was broken, the people first prayed to the Earthmaster for the blessing of successful labor. After ascension, he forged a spiritual device, a shovel in the shape of a crescent moon. Rumor had it that there was no mountain this sacred shovel could not flatten, no tunnel that could not be dug, and no building that could not be entered. This was extremely useful for spying operations in Ghost City. If he wished to enter a secret chamber, he could simply dig his way in, and his tracks would cover themselves. Maybe he could have escaped on his own using his treasured shovel if Hua Cheng hadn't beaten him to a pulp and significantly damaged his spiritual powers. The Earthmaster had never tried using his shovel to tunnel beneath the residence of any heavenly official. He didn't really know he didn't really show the thing off in general. He usually kept it in storage, which was probably for the best. Spiritual devices of upper court officials were generally elegant and beautiful, like books and brushes, swords and fans, and guqin, I don't know how to pronounce that, and flutes. It would completely ruin the court's image if among them was a heavenly official who hauled a shovel around all day. Once he heard the explanation, Shilian couldn't help but wonder. If he wanted his Puchi shrine to be renovated, maybe he should pray to the Earthmaster too? After crawling for a while ahead of him, Shilian heard Ming-Yi ask a question of Shi Qingxuan. Was it the Reverend of Empty Words? Shilian also wanted to know the answer. If the Reverend of Empty Words had injured Shi Qingxuan like this, and if news of the incident got out, it would shake up the heavenly realm and cause a huge panic. To think that a monster could rob a heavenly official of their powers in such a short time, and that it could cause them to fall and become mortal. It wasn't hard to imagine the mayhem that would create. It was such a serious affair, but after a few moments of silence, Shi Qingxuan replied with a simple statement. No matter who did it, this whole thing is over and done with. His reaction was extremely questionable. He shouldn't have been acting so flippant if he was caught in a trap designed to drain him of his power. Shi Qingxuan wasn't a sucker who'd take a beating lying down. A sudden dreadful idea dawned upon Shilian. Although awful to consider, it would explain everything. Just then, Ming-Yi ordered, Silence. They all held their breaths, and Shilian and Shi Qingxuan looked at him. Ming-Yi ignited a palm torch, and the flickering flames illuminated their immediate surroundings. Ming-Yi seemed to want to communicate via the spiritual array, but Shi Qingxuan's power was gone, and he couldn't communicate with his mind alone. Thus, Ming-Yi changed tactics and used his finger to write words in the air. Wherever his fingertips traced, a black streak trailed behind like drops of thick ink diffusing in clear water. The other two read what he wrote. Don't speak, and don't move. Wait. Drink. He waited for everyone to finish reading, then puffed a soundless breath that dispersed those words into the air. Shilian still had some spiritual power left, so he raised his hand and replied in writing as well. Wait for what? How long? Mingyi wrote, Wait until the person above leaves. Shilian and Shi Qingchuan both looked up at the same time. It seemed this underground tunnel Mingyi had dug burrowed beneath some heavenly residences and temples. A heavenly official probably just happened to be above their heads at the very moment. Listening intently, they could hear the sound of steady footsteps pacing back and forth in the chamber above. Judging by those footsteps, Shilian determined that it had to be a martial god. Martial gods' senses were sharp. If the three of them weren't careful and made any suspicious noises, they might be discovered. Shi Qingchuan couldn't use the communication array nor write with ink in the air. All he could do was move his lips silently to express his accusations. Shilian watched him repeat the phrase twice before he could understand what he said. Mingshang, why didn't you avoid temples and palaces? Couldn't you have dug under the Grand Avenue of Divine Might instead? Mingyi indifferently wrote, There wasn't anyone in this palace before. The Grand Avenue of Divine Might is full of holes right now. Shilian wrote, That's right. I saw it on the way over earlier. The avenue is full of holes and craters. Some are even a few meters deep. If we dug into one of those by accident, we might come face to face with someone above. Literally full of holes because Fengxian and Muqing were fighting. And so the three remained as silent as dull rocks, waiting patiently for the heavenly official above them to leave. After waiting for a while, Shi Qingchuan moved his lips again. Are they gone? Mingyi shook his head. Veins popped on Shi Qingchuan's temple, and his angry expression was almost the same as it had been when he was arguing with his brother earlier. He mouthed soundlessly. Who the hell is dilly-dallying like this? It's not even the proper hour for sleeping. And what heavenly official needs to sleep, for that matter? Are we under their bathroom, or what? Strictly speaking, heavenly officials didn't need to go to the bathroom either. As Shi Qingchuan's lips formed the words bathroom, Shilian felt the hair on the back of his neck stand. In one fluid motion, he shoved the two in front of him down while he backstepped and tumbled away. A sharp blade penetrated the tunnel from above, bearing down threatening and rolling with murderous intent. It stabbed into the ground right between Shilian's legs. That's the end of the chapter.
Okay.
Pack, bitch.
Get out of here.
Are you gonna still read?
Yeah, do you have headphones you can walk around with?
Yeah, hold on.
Damn it. Damn it. Keep dropping this shit. Why am I trying to connect to a Ford Ranger? Bro, do not connect to the Ford Ranger.
That would be really funny. You told me think about it, well, I did.
Fun.
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Yes? Hello? 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 Testing?
Hello?
Hello? I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Why are you... You're acting like a grandpa on the phone.
I wish I could increase your volume, but I can't.
Oh, you don't have, like, headphones? You don't have earbuds?
No.
Wow.
No, I don't have headphones.
Put me in a cup. That'll amputate me? Amplify me.
You're in my ear. I just don't have...
Oh, your headphones just suck.
Oh, wait, hold on. Speak.
Hello, 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 hello.
Now I can't hear you at all. What the fuck?
I can hear you better.
Why are you... What the fuck is going on? Hold on.
Testing, 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 testing. You're gay?
Stop. Yeah.
You're one of them queers? You're one of them queers?
No, I'm here. You're here now.
Okay, you can hear me?
Yeah,
Stick me in a cup if you can't hear me.
I can hear you.
Okay. We're in chapter 59.
Okay.
Let me turn you down because you're loud. Although Shilian did indeed live his days passing himself off as impotent, pretending not to have the thing was still fundamentally different than truly losing the thing forever.
Jesus Christ.
It shocked a sheen of cold sweat into covering his body. "Dodge!" he barked. The blade was pulled out of the ground just as he spoke. Shilian seized the chance to move forward, but then he immediately yanked Shichichuan back. Watch out! The blade plunged down again and stabbed right in front of Shichichuan, practically scraping past his head. If Shilian hadn't pulled him back in time, he would have been nailed to the ground on the spot. "That was close," he exclaimed, terrified. "How did you know where it would attack?" "Don't know. Guessed," Shilian said. It was pure instinct. When it came to facing down an enemy with murderous intent, he had trained to the point where he could react without thinking. A second, a third, a fourth blade came plunging down, the glare of each blade blocking the way forward and back. Boom! A huge explosion followed shortly after. Violent tremors shook the tunnel, raining down dust and debris. "They've opened fire from above!" Each boom got progressively louder, and the tremors grew in strength. Their source was obviously coming closer and closer. Sharp swords blocked them from the front and back, all young, keen blades. Feng Xin was a senior, so Shilian wasn't sure that it could fight them head-on. Mingyi retrieved his crescent shovel from somewhere and began to dig into a wall of the confined tunnel with great difficulty. Next to him, Shichichuan was so distressed that his soul was about to leave his body. "Mingshang, can you even do this? Mingshang, can you hurry up? It's your fault for not using that thing for such a long time. You gotta spend more time with your devices, alright? Get intimate. Look how stiff and rusty it's gotten." To be fair, allowing it to become rusty was forgivable. After all, aside from Shilian, there wasn't a single heavenly official who could carry around a shovel every day with a straight face. Veins popped up on Mingyi's forehead. "Shut up!" Shilian hastily intervened. Don't be mad. The tunnel's been dug." It was as he said. The moment Mingyi put pressure on his shovel, a hole opened up before them. Raising his shovel high, he burrowed crazily ahead while Shichichuan cheered him on crazily from the middle. As the only non-crazy person, Shilian brought up the rear. The shovel of the Earthmaster was truly magical. It dug out a few dozen meters ahead with only a few strokes, and when he looked back, the hole behind was gradually closing up on its own. However, thin light leaked from above, the place where they'd just been trapped. "They're drilling through," Shilian alerted them urgently. Mingyi picked up the pace and burrowed even crazier. But suddenly, his movements stopped and he looked up. Shilian reacted the same way because they both sensed the same thing. It was completely silent above them. They could detect no movement. There was likely an empty palace above them. Since their tunnel had already been discovered, they needed to get out before trying anything else. Mingyi changed course and started digging upward. "Are you too sure there's nobody here who will spot us when we get out?" Shichichuan asked. "Haven't heard anything, unless they're sleeping," Mingyi replied. Of course, that shouldn't be a possibility. Heavenly officials usually didn't need to sleep at all, never mind in the middle of the day. Mingyi's shovel broke through, and all three poked their heads out to take a gasp of fresh air. However, before they even had the chance to exhale, they saw someone on the bed across from them. It was a young man, and he was sprawled asleep with his arms and legs sprawled out like a starfish. Shilian was baffled. It seemed there really were heavenly officials who slept in the middle of the day. Roused by the hubbub, the youth rolled over and sat up. His curly hair was a frightful mess from his slumber, and he watched the three strange heads with sleepy eyes. He furrowed his brows and scratched his head, clearly confused as to why such things had appeared in his palace. The three of them pretended that nothing was wrong and hastily clambered out of the hole. But just when Shichichuan was almost out, he gave a cry of alarm. Shilian looked back and saw that a hand had caught his ankle. That hand's owner was Pei Ming. He maintained exceptional manners even while stuffed into a tunnel. Why are you staring at me?
Oh, I was looking at the weather.
Okay. I'd wonder what little mouse was scurrying under my palace. Qing Xuan, why are you out and about? Where are you going? You know how your brother gets when he's mad. Hurry back before he finds out. Royer flew forth to strike his hand away, and Pei Ming leapt out of the hole. Your Highness, Lord Earthmaster, don't you have anything better to do? It's quite preposterous that you're encouraging the Windmaster to run away from home for no reason, isn't it? General Pei, while Lord Windmaster is Lord Watermaster's younger brother, he has been a heavenly official for centuries. Please don't talk about him like he's a 3-year-old toddler, Shilian said. If we're going to talk about reasons, Lord Watermaster imprisoned a heavenly colleague with no justification. No matter how you want to spin it, wouldn't you say he's the one being preposterous? If his theory on the matter was right, then the Windmaster really couldn't stay in the upper court any longer. The figure in bed sat up. It was Xuan Yizhen. He stayed where he was, watching them with a glassy look. He still seemed confused about the whole situation. Xuan Yizhen is, if you remember, during the Lantern Festival, there was a guy who went down and beat up his followers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pei Ming raised his sword. Qi Ying, stop staring and come give me a hand, he said sturdily. Apprehend them. After giving it some thought, Xuan Yizhen decided to assist. He rolled off the bed, picked up the same bed he had just been sleeping on, and hurled it at Pei Ming. He indeed gave a hand, but to help Shilian and company. The bed crashed into the unsuspecting Pei Ming. Qi Ying, why did you hit me? He said, flabbergasted. Xuan Yizhen waved at Shilian, gesturing for them to hurry and leave. Shilian and company stood bewildered for a moment before hastily making their exit. Perhaps he was drained because of his injury, but Qi Qingchuan only jogged a few steps before his face turned pale. Shilian moved to help him along, but Ming Yi immediately yanked him over and lifted him onto his back. Shilian placed his hand on the door and dug out 2 dice, then called out behind him, "Thanks so much!" Xuan Yizhen was still in the process of pummeling Pei Ming, his moves vicious and aggressive and without method. If it wasn't for Pei Ming's own skills, if anyone else took such a thrashing, he would have been beaten bloody by now. Veins popped on Pei Ming's forehead. "Guards! Stop them!" he yelled. Before he could finish calling for the guards, Shilian had already tossed the dice, opened the door, and gotten the hell out of heaven. But as he closed the door and turned around, he never could have expected the sight that would greet him. Oh my god, I forgot about this fucking scene. Hua Cheng was fully nude from the waist up. He had one foot up on a new donation box and was wiping away his sweat. And then there's 3 ... Shilian felt like he was going to suffocate. His run-down, tiny little Poochie shrine couldn't possibly hold so many great idols. There was also a certain possessed individual who was completely oblivious, howling and making a terrible racket outside. "Kazaa! Come give Daddy's legs a little massage chop." It took a moment for Hua Cheng to toss Ming aside, which he had been using to carve wood. He arched an eyebrow. The color of his skin and the contours of his bare upper half were exceedingly beautiful, extremely eye-catching. So much so that Shilian's eyes were about to fall out of their sockets. Even if he hadn't caught all the details, he still couldn't stop the blood from rushing to his head and making his vision go dark.
Oh.
Shut up. Shilian fumbled and stumbled over to Hua Cheng and opened his arms wide, blocking him from Ming Yi and Qi Qingchuan's view. "Close your eyes! Quick, close your eyes!" Their expressions stiffened. They stared at Shilian and Hua Cheng, clearly perplexed. Hua Cheng placed his hand on Shilian's shoulder. "Guga, why are you so nervous?" he asked, sounding amused. Only then did Shilian snap out of it. Yes, why was he so nervous? Hua Cheng wasn't a woman. Who cared if he decided to work half naked? He still didn't drop his arms, doing his best to cover Hua Cheng completely. "Either way, just put on some clothes first." Hua Cheng shrugged. "Okay, as Guga wishes." He then calmly grabbed a shirt and took his time putting it on. Watching him move so fluidly, with such perfect composure, Qi Qingchuan said awkwardly, Sorry for the intrusion. I didn't think you guys..." You two are pretty much. Anyway, just
Whoa.
Shi Qingquan knows what's going on here. My lord, if you have something to say it out loud so I can explain any misunderstandings. Don't just ha-ha it away, okay? Shilian said. They were pressed for time. Pei Ming might pursue them to Puchi Shrine at any moment, so they couldn't stay for long. Ming Yi set down Shi Qingquan and started drawing the teleportation array on the ground. Shilian was just about to ask where they were going when he heard Hua Cheng sigh behind him. Shilian then remembered his advice not to get close to the Windmaster and company. He turned to him in spite of himself. Sorry about all this, Sun Long. Hua Cheng was dressed by then. I already knew you wouldn't sit back and watch. After a pause, he smiled. But why is Gaga apologizing to me? You remember what I said a few days ago? But did you forget what I told you before that? Shilian was slightly taken aback and wondered, what? He then recalled what Hua Cheng had told him that night in the Green Ghost's lair. Just focus on doing what you want to do. Shilian blinked. He didn't know what to say. He only knew he really wanted to do something for Hua Cheng. But at that moment, there really wasn't anything he could do. He was stuck in place until he noticed an issue with Hua Cheng's collar. Wait! He hurried over to help Hua Cheng fix his collar, which hadn't been properly flipped out after he shrugged the robes on. Having fixed it, Shilian inspected him for a moment and then smiled. There. Hua Cheng smiled too. Thanks. A small voice inside Shilian replied, I'm the one who should be thanking you. Like, guys, we have other stuff going on.
Literally, now is not the time, you fruit.
The other two seemed unable to look at them anymore, and Mingy's hand even seemed incapable of drawing a perfectly round circle. Once he finished drawing the array and the door opened again, Shilian thought he would see either a gloomy cave or some majestic palace. Instead, there was a large expanse of farmland. Lush green bamboo groves and mountains could be seen in the distance, and farmers were hard at work in the fields. There was also a burly, glossy, black ox pulling a plow. The scenery almost made Shilian think they were still in Puchi village, and he was briefly stunned. Mingyi had already walked out carrying Shi Qingquan on his back, and Hua Cheng had also stepped through before Shilian managed to collect himself. The four walked along the field ridge. Maybe it was all in his mind, but the black ox seemed to be staring at them the whole way. After walking for a while, they found a small cottage and went inside to sit down. Shi Qingquan blew out a long breath. Are we not fleeing any further? Shilian asked. What if General Pei chases us here? Hua Cheng stared outside for a while, focusing especially on the black ox, before finally closing the door. Don't worry. He wouldn't dare provoke the master of this land, he said nonchalantly. He wouldn't have an easy time if he tried. The water tyrant won't do anything rash either. Shilian contemplated that for a moment and couldn't help but voice his thoughts. San Lang, this whole thing is a mess. It probably involves many in the heavenly court. It might be best if you don't hang around. Hua Cheng only chuckled at that. What goes on in the upper court has nothing to do with me. I'm only here to sightsee by your side. All of a sudden, Shi Qingquan stated, You should all stop hanging around. The others in the cottage looked at him. His Highness is right. This whole thing is a mess, and there are too many involved, Shi Qingquan continued. I'm going to stay here. My friends, there's no need to help anymore. Let's end it here. Lord Windmaster, it isn't up to you whether things end here, Shilian said slowly. It's up to Lord Watermaster and the Reverend of Empty Words. Hearing this, Shi Qingquan's expression stiffened. Lord Windmaster, I have a question. I hope you won't mind, Shilian added. What? Is the Reverend of Empty Words holding something over your and Lord Watermaster's heads? Shi Qingquan turned slightly pale. Let me drink. That night, at the terrace of Cascading Wine, Shilian had set up an extremely secure protection array. As long as Shi Qingquan hadn't opened the door, he wouldn't have been harmed. So why would he choose to do just that? Unless someone connected to his private communication array, and the first thing that they uttered was blackmail. That would give Shi Qingxuan no chance to fight back, nor raise the alarm, and he could only do as instructed. Shilian sat down at the table. I'm more inclined to think it was blackmail against Lord Watermaster, since I don't believe you knew the full story, at least not at first. This would explain why his reaction was so strong after learning whatever it was. The knowledge had provoked such a sharp revulsion towards the upper court that he would rather descend and become a drifting immortal or a wandering cultivator than stay in the heavens as a god. Mingyi frowned. Blackmail? Shi Qingxuan wasn't a fool. If he fell victim to a plot and lost his powers, his normal reaction should have been extreme rage or retaliation directed at the culprit, or a drive to investigate the matter. But there was none of that to be seen. There was rage, but it wasn't directed at the Reverend of Empty Words. It was directed at his own older brother. And to everyone else he only declared that this would all end then and there. This was entirely abnormal, unless Shi Qingxuan's ascension wasn't normal to begin with. It was outrageously audacious to defy the heavens and alter fate. It was treacherous heresy to raise someone who couldn't ascend upon the divine altar. Shilian had never heard of anything like it. Such a revelation, if true, would surely raise a tidal wave of chaos if it got out. Just think, everyone wanted to ascend. But wouldn't the very laws of the universe be rendered irrelevant and worthless if someone could do so using that kind of method? The conjecture seemed absurd, but the more he considered it, the more it made sense. The Reverend of Empty Words had harassed Shi Qingxuan since birth, and the only way to escape was to ascend. And miraculously, he did just that. In the span of just a few years, a pair of blood brothers ascended in succession. What a grand, fine tale. But also, what a grand coincidence. Shilian didn't want to question Shi Qingxuan's ascension, but if the Windmaster was defied naturally, why was it so easy to rob him of his powers? If a monster could turn a god into a human so effortlessly, surely there would be many past cases of heavenly officials who fell victim. Unless Shi Qingxuan should have been mortal in the first place. Unless the Watermaster did something underhanded to make the Windmaster ascend. It wasn't out of line to use rare treasures and devices to aid in cultivation, nor was it out of line to ascend by way of massacre and war during unstable periods in the mortal realm. After all, that was the way of the world. Honor is accomplished by blood, and the slate is cleaned after ascension. With that said, it would be a completely different matter if a mortal or heavenly official used crooked means and conducted wicked rituals to harm others' lives for the sake of becoming a god. Some things were forbidden. Lord Windmaster, the night you ascended, was it the eve of Hanlu? Shilian asked in a low voice. A few moments later, Shi Qingxuan drew a deep breath. Yes. After a pause, Shi Qingxuan explained. When we were in the town of Fugu, that same thing crossed my mind. The eve of Hanlu. Wasn't that the same day I ascended? I wanted to ask you guys about it, to see if it might be a clue or related somehow, or if it was just a coincidence, but I wasn't sure, so I didn't bring it up. Well, now, you know whether it's related. It was related. It was very related. Why did the Reverend of Empty Words choose that day to send Shi Qingxuan to the town of Fugu to watch the exciting performance during the Bloody Fire social parade, then whisk him off to the terrace of Cascading Wine and maim him there? It wouldn't go to such lengths if it didn't have a reason. Shilian connected the timing and the two places together. Centuries ago, a mortal scholar named He broke down and murdered countless people in the town of Fugu on the eve of Hanlu. Centuries ago, Shi Qingxuan ascended at the terrace of Cascading Wine on the eve of Hanlu. It was obvious that the Reverend of Empty Words wanted to say, Shi Qingxuan, your ascension is directly tied to the death of the hero of the Bloody Fire social. This was Shilian's dreadful but logical theory. To rescue Shi Qingxuan from the Reverend of Empty Words, after Shi Wudu ascended. You good, bud?
My foot cramped.
Okay. To rescue Shi Qingxuan from the Reverend of Empty Words after Shi Wudu ascended, he secretly found a mortal who matched the requirements of birth and name. He then conducted some sort of wicked ritual to make that man take on Shi Qingxuan's misfortune. That man was no doubt Scholar He, the man who was exceptionally clever, exceedingly impoverished, and endlessly unlucky, to the point where his entire family was ruined. Scholar He took on Shi Qingxuan's fate, and the Reverend of Empty Words was deceived. That meant his original fate was taken by Shi Qingxuan. On that same Hanlu Eve, one experienced a taste of hell on earth, and the other successfully ascended under immensely powerful protection. But their two fates were originally the complete opposite. Did you understand what just happened?
He was not supposed to ascend.
Yeah, Shi Qingxuan wasn't supposed to be a god, but because he was stalked by this evil entity and was gonna suffer like a horrific fate, his brother swapped his fate with this Scholar He, who we heard about at the fire social,
Yeah.
who got like stabbed a million times by a bajillion people and like murdered half the town. And like his I forget what else. But we'll get over it again. Should I keep going?
No, I'm just finishing up these boots and then I'm
These
good.
boots.
I do have a question.
What?
Not about the book.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think I should? Ew, that was so waxy. Do you think I should put that in my bag?